we'll come in and we'll say to everybody watching and listening, welcome to the Gnostic Rebellion. Today we're speaking with Dr. Joshua Pritikin, author of a wonderfully interesting book that deals with a core theme here at the Gnostic Rebellion, and the Gnostic book that deals with I'm sorry, and the Gnostic Church of Light. Religion Unburdened by Belief is the name of the book. We'll introduce him in a moment, but you'll find immediately below this video, in the description, you'll find a link for our donation button at uh, PayPal, and this program supports the Gnostic Church of Light. It's an historic building, and we invite you to become part of our historic congregation. We're the first fully owned and operating Gnostic church on the continents of the Americas, and your donations are tax deductible. While you do that, we'll extend this blessing. May wisdom and divine providence increase the unique genius of our congregation and bring us to health, wealth, and increase of days. Okay. Having earned his PhD in psychometrics in quantitative psychology from the University of Virginia, Dr. Joshua Pritikin, during his academic career, contributed to 10 peer reviewed publications and now maintains a practice in White City, Oregon. He runs Estrella Counseling and holds a level 3 certification with the IFS Institute, which perhaps we'll talk about a little bit later. But it is his book, Religion Unburdened by Belief, that brings us here today. Hi, Joshua. Please introduce yourself and your book to our congregational network.
Well, I feel like you've already done the introduction, so
Get
thank
a
you
little
for doing
happy.
that.
Okay, so your book, all I said so far was that it's wonderful.
Well, I'm glad you feel that way, but why? Why?
Oh,
What
you're
makes
gonna you're
you
gonna give me the third degree. No, tell us about your book first.
okay? Well, maybe start with the origin story where the idea came from.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's this other book I ran into by James Carse. The title was The Religious Case Against Belief. And I felt his analysis was very insightful. From the title alone, you can hear that like he argued that religion and belief are two different things and maybe working at cross purposes. And that very much appealed to me. But I got about halfway through and felt like he kind of ran out of steam or dropped the ball. And that's what, and I was like, what, where's the follow up to this? And so I decided I had to write it and develop this idea to its fullest extent as far as I could do it. So that's where the book came from. Does that address the question or?
Well, so now we would say, as Gnostics, we would say that um, belief itself is wholly superstitious, and a religion built on belief is superstitious programming. It weakens the individual who should be seeking direct experience with the goal of religion, right? So religion shouldn't include belief at all. How would you respond to that?
Okay, well, you there's a number of like interconnected issues. I feel like maybe one place to start is like, how do you distinguish knowledge and religion? Like, would that be, should we start there? Maybe talk about that a little bit
Well,
first, or
knowledge of what? How do we distinguish knowledge of what? You could say knowledge of religion. I know how to tie my shoes. What knowledge?
okay, well, like, so, so we can have beliefs, and beliefs can be, based on evidence, confirmed or disconfirmed.
Empirical
So,
belief.
sorry.
Empirical belief.
Well, so like if I believe it's hot outside and then I check the thermometer, then I can, or just go outside, then I have evidence that that belief is true. So we could just call it knowledge at that point. But different, is that, you were smiling, what?
Well, I want to critique this idea that if I believe it's hot outside, I can have very good reason to believe it's hot outside. That's not so much a belief as it is a deduction.
Um, well, okay, so maybe a different belief, like you believe you have strep throat, and but you can't really tell until you go to the doctor and get
Yeah,
um, a swab of
I
whatever
might be
bacterial culture.
hyperbolicizing the symptom.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
but
Yeah, or misdiagnosing it. So
yeah,
then
but that's really
once,
a suspicion.
okay, like so you wouldn't call it a belief, you'd call it a suspicion.
Yeah, I mean, I might say I believe I might have strep throat. Let me make a doctor's appointment, right?
Okay,
And I'll find out what it actually is. But I certainly have the feeling that this is more than a cough, right? This is more than just I got a cold, or I may not have just the flu. So uh, you're engaging in the scientific process there, but you're working towards empirical evidence, and that's what you're looking for. Now, uh, let's take a more common belief for religion. I believe in a god or set of gods.
okay, yeah. So the difference between like the belief about the weather or belief that I have a particular bacterial infection, like those, there is some evidence where we can confirm or disconfirm it. With like these religious claims, often there is no evidence, and there may be no no hope of finding evidence too. Like it's really beyond um, experimental science to make the determination or not. So that's so in chapter one of the book, like I'm um, make the case that to uh, uh, like the best way to approach these religious questions is by, since we don't have evidence, is to reduce our conviction in these kinds of beliefs. So because like here's an example. Suppose um, the story of Moses when he finds the burning bush in the Bible. Like if he had come to that experience with pre with expectations like that, oh, a burning bush is a bad omen. Um, I'm going to be punished. And so if he had come to that experience with those preconceptions, then that could have constrained how he would have reacted. Like he may not have developed a philosophy and followed the path that's documented in the story in the Bible. May have taken a different turn. So
Well,
so
now,
that's
what
kind of
about the
the
Judeo Christian who believes that there was a Moses who saw the burning bush?
okay. So, um,
Well, this is where it matters, right?
right. Well, so I before we get to you want me to like generalize the I was just getting to making the general case that um, so in chapter one, I argue for reducing our convictions in both beliefs and disbeliefs as a way of um, copying the approach that Moses took, like that coming to the burning bush without any, just kind of on accident, without any preconceived notions, that made him most available to respond to the experience. So if we want to be most available to respond to religious experiences, then perhaps minimizing convictions is the way to go. Is it
Well, as I think, very aptly state, belief systems seek certainty.
okay?
Okay, so, oh God, if this is true, may lightning strike me now, right? Um, and when somebody comes to identify egoically with that belief system, because their whole life is put into that system. You know what I'm saying? I
Yeah.
was a virgin until I got married, and I did it all the right way, and blah 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 blah. And here are these sinners today. Um, and so how dare they? And the world becomes even that much more evil because I have to be certain right now because my life is invested in it. And you don't want to tell an 80-year-old, you don't want him to discover that he's been wrong all these years.
Hmm. Yeah.
It just wouldn't be kind even.
Yeah.
It would accomplish nothing but, give him some pain.
Yeah. I mean,
Uh,
that's why this message isn't for everyone. Like for those kinds of people, you don't want to try to convince them. Like that's a losing battle. Like they have to come to the realization by themselves. Otherwise, you're just going to
Everyone does.
force them into being more extreme, most likely.
Yeah, I can't convince anyone of anything. I wouldn't bother to preach or proselytize in the least. If you don't like the ideas we express, don't contact
Yeah.
us. um, and it's kind of I always love this saying that Rourke said in the Ayn Rand video on the Fountainhead. He says, "I only want people that want to come to me."
Yeah.
you know, um, or I only want people that want me. Uh, but let's separate out the ego attachment to belief systems. What remains of the belief system? Because as you said yourself, um, these are things we can't prove. I can't prove that there was a Moses in the bush. I can't prove there was a Jesus that was crucified. I can't prove any of this stuff.
Hmm.
So these are all articles of faith and belief, and which beliefs I choose may help me to identify with a certain religion or may make me scatterbrained. And I'm picking for a little bit from each. Uh,
Okay. I mean, so like I'm not sure where you're going with this. Like, like having these beliefs, does that cause you any mental anguish or is it just fine? Like like it
well,
seems
I
like a
would
personal.
portend that the beliefs cause the individual who believes tremendous anguish, but they don't know it. They think that's a good feeling and a good thought. And I think they've been conditioned into it in most cases. And I'm not saying that conditioning is somehow evilly inspired. That's our culture.
Yeah.
We all get acculturated. Um, but that being said, um, the believer who takes on something that can't be proven and yet espouses it as real by virtue of his or her faith.
Hmm.
Which one should we choose? There's like some 260 gods on the world. Which is the right one? Or are they all right? You know what I'm saying? These gods, they're supernatural. And that implies that there's a universe beyond the one that we know. And all the belief structures, ancient Gnosticism, ancient Christianity, well, maybe not ancient Judaism, maybe not ancient pagan culture, because their gods lived on mountaintops. They were part of this world. It was still super ridiculous, but um, they at least didn't fall victim to the Platonic notion of a world of perfect forms that Aristotle then decided must be inherently evil because of its imperfection. And then, of course, Christianity built itself on top of it. You know, um, so I guess we're in Christendom, so we could stick to that. I could bring up whole topics of Judaism and Islam as far as the West is concerned. But if we stick to just Christianity, you know, scholars are finally being unafraid to say there's absolutely no evidence for the existence of Jesus. But there are those in religions that think Jesus is either manifesting on the altar for a Eucharist, or Jesus is there in the spirit of their singing, or, cleansing them of their sins as they proclaim them to the congregation. And who am I sinning against?
Well, okay, but what what are the practical implications of holding these beliefs? Like, what difference does it make? And can we offer people something like a religious experience that uh, has more of a practical effect?
Well, I mean, you're saying just what the state says, which is why all of our religious clerics are tied in with the state. Because, yes, you can't put a cop in front of everyone's house. So, if somebody comes home and decides that his wife made a lousy dinner and he beats the shit out of her, well, there's nobody to stop him. There's no police to witness the crime. But you see, God knows it. God's always watching, you know what I'm saying? He's
Hmm.
the voyeur extraordinaire. We don't think about it when we're pooping. Right? So, this controls society. And for most people, they're not going to think this deeply. You know, it's a religion is Plato's noble lie. Right? It's the lie told that keeps people sedate, keeps them under control, so that we can keep them working because we need them. We can't sit there and go, oh, all these people, the common people are so stupid. We need them. They run the electric plant, they pick up the garbage, they pave the road, they run the cash register. They are this world. Their history layers itself over the top of them. They produce the next geniuses,
Hmm.
in their
So,
offspring.
I'm just I'm trying to uh, keep track of the I don't know, maybe this is too linear, but like keep track of where where you're coming from, which argument you're trying to make. I feel like you started talking about belief systems and some of the alleged benefits of holding them. That it's reassuring to some people. It creates like kind
It
of
gives them a
this
sense of right and
order,
wrong.
sense of
It
order in
teaches them how to
society,
conduct their
stability.
lives. We have a
Yeah.
wedding ceremony, we have a coming of age ceremony, we have a funeral. We have all the rites of passage. It creates stability, a sense of security. It reassures them that they don't have to figure out the universe. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah, right.
What's on TV is great, and just scroll to the next social media page, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's okay. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that.
Right. It's just not enough for me, or maybe for you.
I hope not for me either. Um, so, we're back to the only people that would bother to read your book, the intelligent ones.
Well, the ones that aren't satisfied with what's on offer.
Um, Yes, but I could imagine somebody coming from many different angles. Uh, Somebody who's just curious and reading beyond, somebody raised in this kind of an household looking for what somebody else might think, a literature student coming off of transcendentalist literature. There's 100 approaches to your book. It's one of the reasons why I like the thought you express.
Mhm. Um, yeah, I mean, what, like, uh, I don't know if I should bring this up, but one of the reviewers was saying like that, like the book. just was opening up questions. Like it was more about questioning than about answers, and they appreciated that because like it didn't ask them to believe or disbelieve anything. So, I don't know if that
Well,
resonates with.
I would agree with assessment of your book. I
Okay.
would agree with that as a perfectly rational criticism, and can't see how you'd want the book to be any different.
Yeah.
My my opinions are rather harsh, and I'm rather tough when it comes to this. But I'm trying to lead a church that is saying we don't want you to believe in a damn thing,
Hmm.
not even God. Okay, now come here and we can show you a way to directly experience the divine. And I'll say that, but before you're going to hear it from me, you're going to have already come to me for whatever reason. In other words, we're not out hawking this. We don't need to save so many people by sundown.
Yeah.
And so there are people that, whether intellectually or intuitively, deep down, they feel that these belief structures are in some way hurting them, like you suggest. And yet sometimes that's very, unconscious. It's
Sure.
just a movement of the soul. Sometimes, as Jung would probably say, you meet interesting people as you start stepping on that path. But I would say a lot of people don't even know they've been walking the path for a little while, and then all of a sudden they have a memory and say, "Wow, I've been walking this path for some time now. Didn't even realize it."
Mm,
You know.
yeah.
So that's the spiritual path. That's the way it works. It's kind of that way. And don't take my word for it. Walk the spiritual path, right? And
Yeah.
see that which I saw. Don't follow me, right? Don't seek what any one of these, ridiculous gods sought instead of following them. And that's the danger of these gods. They want you to follow them.
Hmm.
They don't tell
I
you
mean,
to.
you mentioned superstition as a concern. Um, Maybe we could circle back to that.
Okay. So anything, like Nietzsche said, anything that postulates a world better than this is superstition.
Well, um, what do you think
We'll
about?
start there. I don't mean that that's not the
Yeah.
whole of any argument I want to make.
Well, right. So, yeah, in terms of defining superstition, what do you think? Like, I would suggest a different definition, just that that's like a belief where you have invested a lot of conviction in it without evidence.
Whether you've invested a lot of conviction or not, or whether you even believe in it or not, right? I can say that all these gods are superstitious vehicles, and I don't believe in any of them.
Well, but you wouldn't say that unless someone else did. I mean,
Well, I mean, I once believed in them. I was your very devout little Catholic boy.
yeah. So,
Okay.
so that's what I mean is that like a superstition gets that status because someone had conviction in it at some point that wasn't justified.
Well, I mean, I could go into my own personal experience on this and how I came to get to where I got to. But
Okay.
I would say that my story is just one again in a 360-degree circle of possible stories that are going to get you there. So we have to look not at the approach that we take to believing in religion or that it's been conditioned into us or not. We have to sit with the faculty of the intellect. Um, and we have to sit and see how we can verify any of these beliefs. And I think the inevitable conclusion is that unless we're talking about how it, brings me comfort, um, then the belief does absolutely nothing except the fact that everybody around me believes in it so I can, anticipate their behavior.
Hmm. Yeah. Uh, I haven't thought about it deeply, but that seems plausible to me. That's how these uh, belief systems help people feel more comfortable. It's like it makes the world more predictable for them. So
Well, and
yeah, that
that's what you
sounds
call process, right? Ritual and tradition.
well. I make a distinction between content and process beliefs. I thought we had been talking about content beliefs because process beliefs are more about um, the kind of beliefs you need to do a practice. So, like to be able to meditate,
But
then you
wait,
have
that
to believe that.
sustains the culture of the belief. Ritual and tradition. The cleric's job is to make sure that the tradition goes unaltered, that it's unspoiled, that it doesn't change. Okay. And that ritual is the repeating experience of the congregation coming constantly into the church. Okay. And this must be carefully maintained too. Okay, because you can't deviate from it. You can't deviate from the teachings if you're a Methodist, a Presbyterian, whatever. You got to hold to all that. So that's all maintaining the culture, and that process feeds the individual, the Heilig, as the old Gnostics would say. We would call them the man of earth. These are the basic people. You know what I'm saying? They'll believe in anything you tell them. They'll go to church on Sunday. They'll donate and, be all pious. And you'll bury them and you'll counsel their children and whatever else, right? Um, and that's a beautiful thing. You know what I'm saying? Now, content, separating doctrinal beliefs and uh, your idea on predetermined outcome from process beliefs. If I say 10 Hail Marys, God will forgive me for fucking my cousin. You know, so, those two, there is an intertwining between both of them. And
Right.
I think you're
For,
correct in saying, and this is where my mind opens a little bit, process beliefs can enable exploration. And that's even what I was talking about when I was saying, some people may not come into it because they're disillusioned, but just because they're exploring.
mhm.
An idea tickles their intuition, and there they are. And they
Okay.
meet shaman,
So,
using the
so one thing you've said about the your Gnostic church is that you help people have religious experiences and try to bypass all this belief system stuff. So I'm just curious, like how you do that. How curious to know more.
okay. Um, I'll start off by a plug here for our um, uh, preparing for Gnosis free email program with videos and reading assignments and writing and diaries and rumination exercises and things like that. And so, what we say right off the bat, there is a process for getting to know yourself. The Gnostic Jesus in the Gospel of Thomas says, when you come to know yourself, you will simultaneously arrive at the knowledge of the all. And so let's leave that as a hint and a teaser. Let's talk about, if we want to just pursue that for a moment, we'll talk about how modern physics is showing us this all, and modern uh, psychology is showing how that all is also inside of us, and the physics is showing how that universe is replicated inside of us. So we get to holographic theory and a lot of other ideas on that are just absolutely fascinating. um but what was I answering again? Say that again.
Like how how do you connect people with direct experience, direct religious
Okay.
experience? Because
Okay.
like
You got me.
talking about it
You reinformed me. Um,
intellectually, we can just go in circles endlessly with the intellectualizing. So
well, no, not necessarily at all. I mean,
okay,
we could get into a Socratic exercise with all of this, right?
yeah, yeah,
And let's hope I can find a way of not proving myself a sophist in that regard. Um, the coming to know yourself, the rumination, the very thing that you're so well involved with in your trade, as a psychotherapist, because that is coming to know yourself. Okay. I recommend every beginning spiritual student at least take on 6 months of psychotherapy, and not to cure a damn thing, but to know why your favorite color is blue, to understand why you made the decisions you made in the course of your life. You know, uh, why, um, what under, uh, subconscious things are moving you that you need to become aware of. Where is
yeah,
that shadow, if it be, right?
sure,
Um, and so, uh, as you come to know yourself, there's still the intellectual side of the program, and you have to come to know yourself intellectually. And the universe is a mirror of your intellect, as much as it is a mirror of your emotions, as much as it is a mirror of your biology.
mm,
And it's the a priori of your mind, being expressed in interaction with all these other a priori minds in a holographic format. Okay, and don't take my word for it. Um, uh, and so, um, as we develop the intellect, well, let's go through the Western mystery tradition. We're going to start way back when in pre Socratic philosophy and move into Platonic philosophy. And there we have this whole fascinating analysis of the universe from a completely different perspective. Because remember, all the gods belonged to this planet. The stars were mapped in the skies, reflecting archetypes in the human personality. Um, Amazing technology existed that we just kind of rejected in our modern culture. Um, we get to Plato and things start to change, but certainly by this point, Greek culture has risen. It's also owes a great bit to Egyptian culture, and the two cultures really intermingled quite freely because, again, what's his name from Greece took over, conquered Egypt? Ptolemy. He started the Ptolemy line, Alexander. Um, and then we have um, simultaneously developing in the Near East. We have the rising of Buddhist ideas and Buddhist sentiment out of the Hindu culture, which kind of pre-existed.
yeah,
But Buddhist culture has some influence inside of Greece. Take all this complex of thought and intermingling and acculturating and reacculturating and writing their little novels and philosophical tomes, we get a refinement of Judaism. We get because the Hellenic Jews mixed well with Greek culture, and we get Greek culture then infused with even that, and um, this makes its way into Christianity. Through all the Gnostic sects, it becomes Christianity until by approximately the year 700 of the Common Era, um, it's nothing but Christianity left. And that comes down to, of course, now um, Islam develops over in the Middle East, and that comes off of some interesting Gnostic ideas and is a whole other argument. But now we're getting a supernatural world, and this is just being developed as ideas. These are based on Plato, but now it's a Christian church trying to prove its legitimacy and deriving power from it. That ultimately becomes diffuse. We eventually reach past the Middle Ages into the Renaissance. And while the Middle Ages completely suppressed everything that was then, till nothing was left but Christianity, the church began to lose its power in the Renaissance. And so many of these old mysteries and stuff started to be discovered again because they escaped to the Islamic world, where all
Mm.
that Greek literature went. And so now they began to realize things were more sophisticated and complicated than the original Christian message, but they were still lost in, really the Inquisition. So um, these mysteries developed the Rosicrucians into the Masons, um, and that even brings us to this country. Where an independent Masonic lodge was sanctioned by Scotland, and that goes into the American Revolution. So we can get into a full history of that, but I think this thought and this, um, more than theology, but philosophy and pure philosophy. It opens up for us the idealists, the German idealists, Kant and the whole German school of thought, Schopenhauer and Nietzsche and um, uh, others that were so vital to going into this philosophy and developing it again as a living tradition, bringing it back, so that we can bring the intellect to match the emotional freedom that really requires the intellect to refine. And we have to do that intelligently. We're still going to be restricted in part by our culture. We're going to be confined by that, colored by it, nurtured by it. You know what I'm saying? Because we're still creatures of culture. We got to speak some common language, right?
Mm.
But if you're intellectual, you have one language. If you're a street urchin, you have another. The dumb housewife has another, right? And so these all become very sophisticated worlds. Now, I shouldn't have said dumb housewife, but it's that these worlds are sophisticated, stereotypes are generated. And that's part of the nature of being. And that's what we really have to get through. Does the religion bring us to a sense of being, that we get a sense of life?
Okay, so I asked you, uh, how do you, well, if when people come to your church, like, how do you guide them to have religious experiences that uh,
Well, first of all, we're going to
give them
set,
that sense
we're,
of being?
yeah, we're going to set we're going to make life sacred. Our Eucharist of the five elements that we do at our service once a month. Um, our Eucharist of the five elements um, is designed to symbolically connect us to the parts of our being, the parts of our lives, and connecting them with the world itself.
Okay.
Um, we have a call and answer portion, and then we have a thing where I read doctrine of the five yods, which are like intelligence, intuition, you know uh, things like that. And we want that one place where you can go every month because you're out in the world, and whether your kids or your wife or your boss or your customers or whatever, they're constantly tugging on your coattails. This is the one place where you can come and recharge your batteries. no matter, where it goes. We want you to recharge that spiritual battery. We want you to have a place with authentic spirituality. You know what I'm saying? When you get to church, you're checking out a church because you're thinking you want to bring your young family and give them some religious instruction. And you go to church and you find out because you fucked three different girlfriends in the back seat of your dad's car, you're going to hell forever and you're condemned. Or you need a model man like Jesus who's willing to be tortured for anyone and everyone, and or an impossible lady because by the time she was 16 she couldn't live up to the Virgin Mary anymore, at least if she was alive,
Hmm.
right? So um you find out that you come feeling sick and full of sin, and you walk out of this saying, that's not me, that's not the being that I want to aspire to, and I can't stop being who I am or who I was. And I want to become and follow my own sense of right and wrong, my own sense of dignity, and practice my own personal sovereignty. So we're not going to give you, when spirit leaves the temple, um, politeness and virtue run in. I couldn't think of the word. Morality rushes in to fill the void. When spirit leaves the temple, morality rushes in to fill the void. And so these religions are all about being good. I'm going to read the Bible because that'll get me into heaven. And so there's the old men in their Bible reading club 3 days away from dying. I'm going to read it now. I'm reading it now, God.
Hmm. Um, so it seems like with these last few examples, what you're pointing at this division between good and evil that people can project on themselves, and critiquing that and saying that, um, well, actually, that's uh, it's like creating a split in our psychology, and a more healthy approach would be to um, understand mm, our our own parts, like what's motivating them, how they're trying to help us, what why they're where they learn these dysfunctional behaviors, if they're dysfunctional, or just to kind of have your own develop your own moral sense, and stop uh, like outsourcing it. So like instead of relying on someone else's moral sense to develop your own.
Yeah, which has always been the criticism, a big criticism of the ancient Gnostics. There's no morals to these guys. They refuse to teach morals or morality. And so do we. Um, that's not to say be immoral. We can say you can do anything you want, absolutely anything you want. Be ready to pay the price. You know what I'm saying? You
Yeah.
want to become a billionaire, you might sell your entire soul for that. You want to go kill somebody, you're probably going to jail. Same with robbing a bank, but maybe for longer. Depending on who you kill and what bank you rob.
Yeah, yeah, it depends.
Yeah. And how wealthy you are, what good lawyers you got.
Right.
Um, so moving past that is sanctity. And we put the spirit in our temple. That's why we had to push morality out. And so there we have a place that we treat as a holy sanctuary. Um, Now, as you begin to interact with the church, because the church has an online congregation, teaching and structure, um, we begin to show people techniques for examining themselves until the big secret finally is something that they can figure out. You are God. You aren't just a God, you're God of very God.
Well, okay, like so that's the comparable to what there's like the non-dual traditions and non-dual philosophy, Advaita, Is that oh, that's different? You're shaking your head.
I'm avidly opposed to monism. Monism leads people down the road of finally determining that you don't really exist and you got to kill your ego. Okay. In killing your ego, I say just walk down to the poor side of town and look for the homeless guy running down the middle of the street cursing the sky because he did a real good job at losing his ego. Okay. Um, and
But
uh,
that seems more like a critique of the balance, like so that you shouldn't abandon individuality when you encounter monism or non-dual experience. Like you should uh, that should cause you to treat both as like equal.
well, I'm telling you that there is no non-dual experience, in my opinion. Of course, you can vehemently disagree with me. There
Well, but
is a non-dual base from which multiplicity arises. But once the multiplicity arises, the monad is no longer is. That the one became the all. For the one to become the all, the one can no longer exist. God must be in its infinitude, everything at once, and every one of us is the locus of our own divinity.
well, okay. Well, like I agree with you, like that, like it simultaneously we can't be both uh, individuals and feeling the universal being like simultaneously. But why couldn't you do that in sequence, like not at the same time, but like have an experience of monism and then an experience of individuality, not at the same time?
Um, Excuse me. I think you can't have an experience. There is no experience of monism.
Okay,
There's no experience of dualism. These are matters of perception. There's no experience. Well, perhaps we can experience the effects of nihilism more readily. But, and those are the three main forms of philosophy. So, in monism, as life is essentially meaningless, as life is an illusion, because everything goes back to the monad and we're seeking a return to the one, right? Because we're the lost sparks of the intimate fire, right?
sure.
And we want to return to source, right?
Okay, yeah.
Okay. So that makes our conversation exactly meaningless. There's no reason to teach math. You know what I'm saying? There's no reason to learn how to ride your bicycle. There's no reason to do a damn thing.
Sure. Like, but that seems like again, I feel like you're taking an extreme position where I'm arguing for uh,
But wait a
like
minute,
holding
that's the
both.
metaphysic. That's the metaphysics and its teaching. So, is this something that you're going to portray or emanate or involve yourself with in direct contradiction to that teaching? Then I would say there's a very typical superstitious structure to thought.
Um, so, well, you're smiling like you've made some clever point that I guess I'm not following it. Maybe you could unpack that.
Well, restate, because I was a little bit abrupt, restate what you were about to say. I'll listen more
Well,
politely.
okay. Well, I just felt like I was agreeing with the points you're making about monism or non-dual experience. But like you seem to be taking it to an extreme as if we're abandoning individuality. But to me, that's not the message. It's just like uh, a temporary, momentary experience that you have, and then you also have to uh, act in the world as an individual and try to make meaning that way as well. But
Well, um, I'm not intimating, I'm not suggesting or implying, I'm outright stating that there is no way to hold in the same on the same plane individualism and monism. Individualism automatically requires a dualistic structure. If, however, you can hold on to this idea of an individual inside of a monistic structure where all of us are really illusions, then I say that that's, incompatible with rational thought.